The NFL trade deadline is just a few days away, so should the Bengals add to their team? The answer is yes, but it's complicated. Let's get into it right now on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Look, it's a busy week. We're monitoring the Joe Flacco injury. We're monitoring a lot of things, and we're going to have you covered. But the trade deadline is looming. The trade deadline is Tuesday, November 4th, right around the corner, 4 p.m. And it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen across the league? And you heard me right. The Bengals should absolutely buy at the trade deadline. The Bengals should absolutely be trying to add to their team at the trade deadline. But that's kind of the mindset I have regardless of Sunday's game. And you're probably like, oh, well, James, what are you talking about? Sunday's game matters so much because if they get to 4-5, then they can feel like with a win over the Steelers after the bye that they'd be 5-5 and right in the division. And with a loss, they're 3-6 and they're out of it. And I totally get that. Here's why the Bengals need to be buyers at the deadline, at least on the hunt at the deadline for a very specific kind of player. Because they need to be much, much better on defense. They need more playmakers. They need more game changers. And so if you can acquire one of those guys via trade, and that person is under contract after this year, great. Great. Sign me up for that. And the number one target on my list would be none other than Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams is a beast. And he was here in town last week. And obviously, we didn't hear his name a lot. But you're talking about an all-pro, a three-time Pro Bowler. He's 27. He'll be 28 years old in December. But you just look at his presence, what he means. He's been a Pro Bowler 3 straight years. I talked to multiple Bengals offensive linemen last week, and they were like their faces almost lit up when I asked about Quinnen Williams because of how good he is. Now, he signed a contract extension in 2023. He's under contract through next season, and there's an out in his deal. Look, he makes a lot of money. Guess what? That's okay. Part of what this week was and has been a reflection on what the Bengals have struggled to do. The Bengals have struggled to get game-changing players on defense. They let the ones they had walk out the door, and they didn't replace them. They tried, but they didn't. They haven't been able to replace them in the draft. And who knows? Maybe Shamar Stewart ends up being really good. Maybe some of these guys end up developing like DJ Turner has. But do you want to wait for that? I don't want to wait for that. I don't think anyone wants to wait for that. And that's why when I look at this, I say, all right, how can the Bengals make this work? How can the Bengals find a way to turn this defense around in a hurry? And naturally, it's, okay, well, free agent spending. Spend. These guys aren't going to hit free agency. Quinnen Williams isn't going to hit free agency. And so he's under contract for a couple of years. He's 28 years old. I would be in on him. Today's video is brought to you by Christian Husky of Sipsey Klein Realtors, and you have to check out his latest listing because 4401 Graydon Drive in Middletown, well, it is a must-see. Of course, it's at the end of a cul-de-sac. It's got almost 2,400 square feet. The 4-bed, 2.5-bath home has hardwood floors throughout, fresh paint, new carpet in the basement, and by the way, a brand new roof, brand new, with a 50-year warranty. And you got to see it. You got to check it out for yourself. If you're watching on YouTube, you can show how beautiful this house is. You can see it. So check it out today. And if you're looking for real estate advice, check out Christian at sipseyklein.com/chusky. Another guy that makes sense that I think has been talked about so much, and at this stage, he might be trending in the wrong direction, but you look and the age is it's right there. It's Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons under contract through 2027. Another game-changing defensive tackle. It feels like he's been around so long, I think because of the battles with the Bengals, the playoff game, and then obviously, Joe Burrow gets sacked 7 times. The Bengals somehow win that game. Then a couple of years ago, they go there and the Bengals get absolutely crushed. Jeffrey Simmons is another one that, if he's available, would I give up a 2+ for him? Absolutely. And again, it wouldn't be necessarily about this season. It would be about getting a game-changing defensive tackle that can wreck games. Because if you get that, boy, oh boy, does it help. Is it really, really hard to find? The answer is yes. So those are the two guys, like my top targets It would be those two guys, but not just those two. There's another one. But wait, there's more. There is. I would call the Giants. I would call the Giants and I would say, hey, New York Giants, what about Kayvon Thibodeaux? What about a guy that, yeah, he's under contract next year on his 5th-year option, but you have multiple defensive ends that you really, really like. Brian Burns is obviously the leader in that room. You spend an early pick on a stud defensive end out of Penn State. And so it's like, all right, let's see what they're going to do if they're willing to do something with Abdul Carter and all these guys. Like, they have a great defensive front. Sexy Dexy Lawrence. By the way, if Dexter Lawrence were available, I don't think he's even close to available. But if he were, of course, you'd be in on him. Kayvon Thibodeaux is probably the odd man out, the one that you don't pay if you're the Giants. And so maybe you can get him. Like Jeffrey Simmons and Quinnen Williams, like I would be open to a first-round pick. I'd want to pick back in that scenario. Second round plus would certainly do that. Player plus would certainly do that, right? Are we talking, are they interested in kicking the tires on Cam Taylor-Britt or Logan Wilson plus 2 picks for either of those guys? Sure. Are the Giants interested in a second rounder and Logan Wilson for Kayvon Thibodeaux? I would do that, right? And so I'm just spitballing ideas here. All of these guys, by the way, under contract. I have a dark horse player. It's another defensive player that the Bengals could be interested in, maybe interested in because of his pedigree and because maybe this guy just needs a change of scenery. We'll get to that and much, much more. But yeah, those are the guys that really stand out to me. I sent Andrew a text as we were going through this, and I was like, all right, who would I be paying attention to? And literally Quinnen Williams, Kayvon Thibodeaux, and then obviously Jeffrey Simmons. He's someone that I almost forget about now because he's been talked about for a few years. But if you can get him, of course, he would be a game changer. But there's one dark horse and then a few names that people have mentioned that I would be open to, but don't fit the bill from a contract standpoint. So we'll get to those as well coming up next. If you're like me, you can be terrible at budgeting and spend your money on things and you don't even realize you're doing it. Online shopping is certainly a big one for me, but Rocket Money has helped set a budget tailored to my lifestyle so I can still enjoy every game, every season, every moment without all the stress and all of the late night scrolling and shopping, which I know a lot of you do as well. Look, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is a personal finance app designed to help you manage all your subscriptions, help you lower your bills, create custom budgets, grow your savings all in one place. That's the beauty of Rocket Money, is because whether you're saving for something big, whether you just want to cut little costs that you don't think about, Rocket Money is going to help you do it without the stress. I'm sure a lot of you overspend during football season. Who doesn't? Whether it's tickets, tailgates, merchandise, you name it. Well, Rocket Money's custom budgeting tool helped me plan out my budget. They can help you as well. And if you're ready to take control of your finances like a pro, whether you're watching Sunday football, catching college games, saving for tickets to see your favorite team, Rocket Money has your back. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get started with a free trial today. All right, let me give you a dark horse name and someone that, unlike Quinnen Williams, unlike Jeffrey Simmons, unlike Kayvon Thibodeaux, probably not moving the meter as much, but would be an interesting flyer. Deonte Banks, former first-round pick, was picked five slots ahead of Myles Murphy in 2023. Has really struggled with the Giants. But you're talking about a guy with really good size, speed, is someone that I think the Bengals would have been in the mix on for sure at pick 28 overall. Goes to the Giants. It just hasn't worked out. And so he's under contract next year. Could the Bengals kick the tires there? Wouldn't shock me if that's something that they wanted to do or at least had a conversation about. Just throwing his name out there. Now, let's get to some guys that are honorable mentions, that are guys that aren't under contract after this year. And the most popular one is Riq Woolen. Riq Woolen, it continues to be mentioned, and he's playing a ton for the Seahawks. But you look up his contract, you look up where he's at. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. He doesn't make a lot of money. And yeah, I get it. The Seahawks are good. They're 5-2. And yeah, he might not fit their long-term vision in Seattle, but unless they're getting better at corner, I don't really see it. And he's in a contract year again, so the Bengals would have to commit to paying him. I'm not sure they would want to do that at this point. especially because he's not established. Like guys like Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Kayvon Thibodeaux, for example, he has the 5th-year option next year, but you would trade for him knowing, hey, we're going to pay him. We're going to pay this guy long term. And so that's one. I'll give you 2 others. Alontae Taylor, contract year, been pretty solid for the Saints this year. If you're looking for cornerback help, that's one that the Bengals may have a conversation about. I think it has been discussed in NFL circles. And then this is the James Rapien special here. This is the one that, boy, would I be excited about, because he would solve some of the issues that the Bengals hoped they solved when they drafted Jermaine Burton. Rashid Shaheed. And this is more if they win Sunday, decide to become buyers, look at their roster and say, all right, well, what could we use? Depending on what it would cost, the Saints are going nowhere. And Rashid Shaheed is the returner, the deep threat, the all of the above complement that you would want for this Bengals offense with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like, good luck putting Rashid Shaheed in single coverage, because he's going to beat you over the top. And we saw his coming out party a few years ago against the Bengals. That's when it really started going in New Orleans. And since then, he's just been a deep threat that really can make game-changing plays when healthy. So I think that's really unrealistic, just to be clear. But that's one that, man, I just look at it football-wise, and there's going to be so many people that say, oh, well, what about the defense? Well, I spent 8 minutes talking about the defense, right? And all these defensive players that they could go after. I think they feel really content with where they're at guard-wise. I feel like they feel comfortable there. That's why I haven't looked at the offensive lineman element of this. The Tennessee Titans, for example, with Kevin Zeitler just sitting there, I just don't think that's realistic. As even mentioning is a possibility. But these are the guys that I would be interested in. And like I said, regardless, if you could get Jeffrey Simmons on your team, you do it. If you could get Quinnen Williams on your team, you do it. If you could get Kayvon Thibodeaux on your team, you do it. Now, it's got to be realistic. I'm not saying give up 2 1s for these guys. That's not what I'm saying. But if you could give up a 1 and get Jeffrey Simmons, and you also give them a 5th rounder and you get a 3rd back or something like that, well, you do it. Why wouldn't you do it? And for those wondering, like, oh, really? Would you do that? Well, would you give up Shamar Stewart? And, there would be Dylan Fairchild this year, right? If you did a 1 and a 3, but let's just say it's a 1 and a 5. Would you give up Shamar Stewart and Jalen Rivers for Jeffrey Simmons? Would you give up Miles Murphy? I'm just naming the 1st-round picks here. Dax Hill. And so that's what you have to do. Like, when you hear the word 1st-round pick, it sounds really, really, I don't know. But the Bengals just need game-changing talent on defense. And it needs to happen in a hurry. And so if they can get one of these game-changing guys without selling everything, and yeah, it's going to cost, but the things that cost are usually worth having. If they could do that, it would go a long way toward helping this defense, not just this year, but beyond. And that would be my magic. If I could wave my magic wand, that's what the Bengals would do at the trade deadline here before November 4th. We're going to have you covered. We'll probably have more thoughts on the trade deadline after Sunday's game against the Bears. Headed down to the stadium today. Of course, we'll have the latest on Joe Flacco. We'll have plenty of thoughts on that. But trade deadline looming. And of course, we're excited here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. So for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. We have you covered all season long. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Cincinnati Bengals Talk.